I like the grouchiness of the first Doctor. I like the deviousness of the second. And the fact that he was rather a protective uncle in a way, but he was just as mischievous as any of the kids he might have encountered. Pertwee's elegance, Tom Baker, very weird, but Tom Baker was the first Doctor I saw, but unlike they always say, oh, the first Doctor you see is your favorite. No. But there's elements in all the Doctors. It's basically, if you could picture, these are some of his parts. All the various Doctors make up this one being that is the Doctor, and that's what I like.
I think you have to love all the Doctors if you love Doctor Who. I have favorites, though. I think my favorite Doctor is the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker, and probably my second favorite would be the 9th, Christopher Eccleston. I think in both of those cases, I feel those Doctors, the 6th and 9th, were both a little bit outside of the mold of the standard Doctor. Usually we see the Doctor as, you know, nice and quirky. Not that they weren't nice and quirky, but I found the fact that the 6th was a little bit, you know, off kilter, sometimes had a hard edge to him once in a while. I like that. I really felt that Christopher Eccleston had a similar approach when he played the Doctor because of the damage of the Time War. It's a particularly interesting character to me, and I really feel that Eccleston might have been one of the best actors to play the role because he could really emote a lot with his face. So he actually said a lot without saying anything.
Usually the way I go is my first Doctor was Pertwee, and he's got a soft spot in my heart for that. But I spent a lot of years not watching television, and the Doctor that really brought me back to being a fangirl sort was David Tennant. I liked Eccleston. I thought he was a wonderful take on the Doctor, and I think Matt Smith is great, but it was David Tennant that actually made me kind of like, I think it's about time to start going to conventions and things.
David Tennant. One thing, he's my first Doctor, and for another thing, he's so just like in with it. He's just like knows everything but doesn't know everything sometimes.
My favorite Doctor is William Hartnell, the first Doctor. I think what it is about him is that he really has, every Doctor that has come after him seems to have some aspect of him. So, like, when you watch David Tennant or Matt Smith or Sylvester McCoy, you can always kind of see that they have picked up some sort of Hartnell-esque trait, that he was the original, he was the first, and in my opinion still the greatest.
My personal favorite, which is surprising for a lot of people because I am so young, is in fact William Hartnell, the first Doctor, because he is the first, he is the one that made the series what it is and allowed it to continue on.
I'm officially not allowed to have a favorite Doctor because I started working at Doctor Who cons when I was 16, and I was at a convention with John Pertwee and Colin Baker, and each one of them grabbed an arm and were playing tug of war and trying to get me to say, who's your favorite Doctor? Who's your favorite Doctor? No, she's mine, she's mine, she's mine. Back and forth. And so in front of about 350 people, I made a solemn death oath that I would never pick a favorite Doctor.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it depends on what you consider canon. Yes, it's been classically established that he has 13 incarnations, 12 regenerations. But I'm a big fan of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and in fact, I would almost say that the Sarah Jane Adventures is closer to classic Doctor Who than Doctor Who is right now. And in Sarah Jane Adventures, just an offhanded remark by Matt Smith is that he has a whole lot more regenerations than just the classic 12. So, overall, I feel that, I love Doctor Who. It is fiction, and all they need to do is come up with a story to explain it, and I look forward to what story that's going to be.
Well, I think any good idea always has another good idea in order to make sure that it continues. So all the writers really need to do is say, well, he had 12 regenerations for that cycle. In 5 Doctors, the Master is granted a new set of regenerations if he helps the Time Lords. The same can happen, with the Doctor character. There are no Time Lords now, so perhaps there's no reason that Time Lords are limited to 13 regenerations.
Sarah Jane, I think, is the basic perfect favorite companion because she's like all around. She's very strong. She's a very strong, very, independent, wanting to go with that, but also has like a lot of the simplistic side that the audience can relate to. My personal favorites can also go from the second Romana, because I really loved her intelligence. I thought that was like very strong with her, and she was almost equal in the Doctor. Same thing with Zori Harriet.
You used to say Leela because I liked her straightforward, can I kill him now, Doctor? Sarah Jane, because that was the first you actually saw of somebody standing up for women's rights. Liz Shaw, because she was very scientific. But I do like Donna a lot because she just wanted to travel. She wanted to have adventure.
Over the years, I have really grown to like Zoe a lot. She's one of my favorite companions. I think she's extremely intelligent and smart, and I think that's appealing and interesting. And I think it's interesting when the Doctor is challenged by somebody who may sometimes challenge his perceptions of what intellect or intelligence is. I'm also a fan of Mel Bush, which you're probably not going to find too many of them. I really felt that she was an underused character, but I thought it was bold that they tried to introduce a character who was a computer programmer, but sadly they never put her into a role in which she actually did computer programming. I think her best single line was, "It's a megabyte modem, Doctor." And but of all the travels they had, I think having a hacker type character could have really worked. I just feel that the writers never, used her as well as they could have.
My favorite companion is one that has not actually ever been on television. Bernice Summerfield, Benny, who was introduced for the line of Virgin novels, and has appeared in Big Finish Audio and has been seen in the comics, but as of yet still has not ever appeared on television.
Probably Craig. Most people say that he isn't actually a companion, but I just love him in Stormageddon, Dark Lord of All, The Baby. I just find that hilarious.
Favorite companion? Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane is one of my all-time favorites. Rose is one of my all-time favorites. Captain Jack's been an awful lot of fun. Love River Song.
That is a tough one. I really like Ace, just because she's kind of a tough kid from the streets, and there's something very appealing about that. So,
Romana 1.
I really don't have a favorite companion because I'm not.
And what is it about Romana 1 that you like so much?
Her personality, just everything about her, how she was on par with the Doctor and just could bite back at him.
I like the Master. I like the Master returning.
Zygons. They could be anything.
It's kind of weird. They've only ever appeared once, but I've always had kind of a soft spot for the Zygons. And I think it was because they were, one of the first monsters that I ever saw. My first episode was Robots of Death, and Terror of the Zygons was previous to that. But I think that the PBS station I was watching kind of showed them out of order, because I remember seeing the Zygons real early on as well, and they were the first monsters that really kind of stuck with me. The ones that have actually shown up in nightmares and stuff like that for me.
So the new Silurians, because I haven't watched the old Silurians, because they were the good guys, sort of.
The Weeping Angels are the scariest. I know a lot of people probably say that. They're just, I don't know if they're my favorite, but they definitely freak me out the most and give me the most nightmares.
In that period when I was a kid of the Team TARDIS with the 3 companions, and Anthony Ainley's master was always scared me as a kid.
I'm very fond of the Sontarans, actually, though I also don't feel that we've seen them used to their full capacity. The Sontarans are the most interesting to me because they can clone at a rate of 1 million in 4 minutes or something like that, and I think it would be really interesting if there was a story in which literally there were millions of Sontarans actually up against the Doctor in just moments. That would be one heck of a thing. So I've always found them interesting. I think their militaristic style is an overt threat, but if you really had to deal with people that could clone quickly, I think that's interesting. I also find the Rutans interesting, who of course are the antithesis of these Sontarans, because what more interesting thing would you have for a cloned race than if you were fighting a race that shapeshifted? And so they could actually very easily infiltrate the ranks of the clones, and so I think as the writers of the series put it together, those were particularly interesting to me.
Traditionally, my favorites have been the Cybermen. There's just something interesting and chilling about, a race of people who are not people anymore and who've become machines. As far as individual villains, I would say probably the Master. The Master and Davros, I would say, would probably tie for first place.
I would narrow it down to the Delgado Master.
Yeah.
Just sort of so quintessentially Doctor Who, like you can't have a season without them. Like it wouldn't be right. Like it wouldn't.
They're characterless. A villain needs to be interesting. They just want to kill everything.
Well, I love the Daleks, for one. I can kind of see the idea that people who aren't familiar look at it and go, what's the big deal? These are not scary at all. And I mean, that said, in some of the classic episodes, the Daleks were really not all that scary, but they've done quite a bit to get around that, especially in the new series. By just basically showing how badass they pretty much are. I mean, when like all the things that were considered weaknesses have been kind of done away with, and they have used sound and lighting and just so many other things, and even the script to show us that the Daleks really are a conquering force in the universe.
But I will have to say straight up, I am partial to the Daleks. I know it's cliche, but there's something I really love about that. I love hearing that voice. When I hear that voice, it's like, that is just got such a perfect blend of everything I love seeing, so.
And the evolution, the ones who basically were just hate, and as soon as we got Davros into the mix, it was like, you kind of lost the horror of the Daleks because they could be controlled. They were answerable to something. And then when you get the Emperor and you get the whole religion of the cult of Skaro, I'm not quite sure if they're as scary when they're religious based versus they're just basically out to kill everything in the universe. And the trouble is, as it's evolved, they're using other life forms to regenerate themselves, so it's not as straightforward as it used to be. Now they really hate themselves because they're not pure Daleks.
I actually have a huge love of the Daleks because I can say the very first Doctor Who episode I ever saw was the 6th episode, the last episode of Genesis of the Daleks. I was flipping through channels on Milwaukee Public Television. I came across the show and there were these robots that were talking in a grating voice, and I literally stopped and I said, what is this? I need to know what it is. These robots are totally cool. And so I can honestly say that it was the Daleks that gave me the awareness of Doctor Who. I stopped, I watched the rest of the episode. There was, Tom Baker in his long scarf, this hero, his companions, Sarah Jane and Harry were running around with them. And I was pretty much hooked on the series immediately from then.
The best episode I always introduce people to, especially to the classic series, is City of Death. I always do that because first off, it's written by Douglas Adams, so it's very accessible to everything. It is very funny. Also, it has the least amount of the TARDIS in there, so that it's also accessible for everybody there. And it does give across the idea of the whole time travel science and, cross together. I think that is like the perfect episode. And of course, it is just shows the Doctor and the companion dynamics so beautifully, and Tom Baker's Doctor character and the character of the Doctor in general, where he's this buffoon in this very serious situation, and yet he can go right through.
Blink, because it's got a good thing of Doctor Who in it.
My own personal favorite episode is Vengeance on Varos. One of the reasons I really like that story is because the story is about television and television viewers and how we use television, and I think anytime a program challenges the viewer themselves to think about how they watch television, I think that's a win. So I think that's a really good show. It's my own personal favorite. I also think that a particular sequence that I love in Doctor Who is Christopher Eccleston in The Empty Child. The Doctor dances, actually, that episode, in which we have the moment in which he cures everyone. We have everybody lives just this once, and I think that, to me, is the power of Doctor Who. A character who can revel and enjoy life at its fullest, and whether it's in the smallest things or in saving everybody, I think that's a great moment.
As far as classic episodes are concerned, I have always had a soft spot in my heart for Ark in Space. I love. Yes, I know the Wirren are a cheesy monster. Yes, it's a cheesy monster, but I used to have a horrible fear of wasps, and the idea of a giant wasp that could lay its eggs in somebody's body absolutely scared me to death. And Tom Baker in that is just rocking, and Elizabeth Sladen in that is just rocking, and everybody in there is just, it's a fantastic, it's one of my favorite episodes.
One of my personal favorites is the first one I ever saw, which was Doctor Who and the Solarians. And I loved it because I was a peacenik hippie at the time, and it was just the message I wanted to hear.
This is kind of the one that when I have friends who are interested in Doctor Who have never seen it before, and I want to show them classic Doctor Who, I pretty much always show them Horror of Fang Rock. Because it has just so many of those elements of classic Doctor Who. It's Tom Baker, so it's relatively easy to get into. It has a creepy atmosphere, has a bunch of people stuck in a lighthouse being picked off one by one by some sort of monster that you don't see until near the end. The monster itself is not really all that dramatic, but it still is just such a great atmospheric episode.
From 1977 to 1980, I lived in England, and I was seeing one 25-minute episode a week. The first story I saw was actually Horror of Fang Rock in the fall of 1977, and first of all, it was a little atypical even for that era. They had a lot of the kind of Hammer horror-esque episodes, but I came into this thing and I'm like, ooh, creepy lighthouse and creepy Victorian things. I had no idea what it was. And there was this thing that glowed and was creeping up the stairs of the lighthouse for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And I don't know what this is, but it's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Well, it helps that my school is 4,000 kids, so there's enough that there's a lot of other Whovians out there. So we have like a Doctor Who club, and there's a Doctor Who club on Facebook, and my lunchbox is a TARDIS, and there's Amy for Halloween. Yeah, I got that. There's just finding other people, sort of like I have relatives and older people who are also into it, and then I have friends my age who are into it, which makes it a lot more fun. We have like premiere parties and stuff.
My lab has a window in which I have a plastic window cling of the TARDIS. My purse has a TARDIS keychain charm hanging on it where it's always visible.
Reading all the books and finding all the fan videos and reviewing them for the Friends of Doctor Who newsletter. Trying to write short stories and books, because I was also into doing the fanzines back in the day. I got into Doctor Who fandom because one of my fanzine editors wanted me to write the show, and I didn't even have any idea that the show existed. So that's how I got into Doctor Who fandom, was basically because of fanzines.
Fan fictions galore, for one thing. I'm all pro fan fictions. Fan fictions are what happens when this doesn't happen. So I like to think, that in certain situations I have been like, what would the Doctor do? That he fights adversity. He struggles through when things get hard. That if I'm having kind of a down day, I can put in an episode and feel better about life in general. That that I know that being a fan of this show has introduced me to so many other people who are fans of the show, and that some of my closest friends, even the ones that I only get to see once or twice a year at these conventions, that if I hadn't known the Doctor, I would not know these people who are now very important in my life.
I'm involved with the Milwaukee Time Lords Doctor Who Club. I do my own Doctor Who fanzine called The Diary of Doctor Who Role-Playing Games, which takes a look at Doctor Who role-playing and other games, board games, that sort of thing that's released. For many years, I've been active with the Earthbound Time Lords, which is the Doctor Who club that I helped start in the 1980s. It found new life online, and it's an academic Doctor Who website. So me and John Curtis, who helped form it with me, wanted to look at Doctor Who academically, seeing as we both work at universities, and wanted there to be a serious look at Doctor Who. So we were publishing articles about Doctor Who online with serious footnotes, academic citation, starting in the early 1990s. Yes and no. I'm the advisor to the science fiction club on my university campus at the Milwaukee School of Engineering, and that club is called MAGE. And most of the students in that club know that I like Doctor Who. In fact, some of the students at the university do. But every now and then, because students know that I'm into sci-fi, they may not know I'm a Doctor Who fan, they'll come up to me and go, "Oh my God, have you ever heard about this really cool show called Doctor Who?" And they have no idea how involved I am with fandom, how active I am with conventions, the fact that I've been watching the show clearly longer than they've ever been alive. So to me, that's always very fun. So.
Everyone here is your friend. So don't be like hesitant to talk to people, because if you're gonna get in a conversation with them, it's not gonna be like a 2-second, "Oh hey, this blah, go away." You're gonna have like a 5-hour conversation, and then you're gonna be best friends forever.
I would say make sure that you take the time to do what you really want to do and not feel like you have to do the things you feel you should do. So if there's something scheduled that you really want to see but feel like you should do something else, do what you want to see.
If you've never been to a Doctor Who convention, a few things that I would recommend. Try to go and see as many different things as you can, because there's such a variety of opportunities and experiences. It could be cosplaying and joining a masquerade. It could be going to hear actors or actresses speak about their experiences on the show. It could be hearing a person who composed the music talk. It could be getting autographs so that you have a memory for the rest of your life, photographs, talking with other friends, or fans and meeting them. I'm very fortunate that I've met people literally from all over the world that I look forward to seeing yearly at this event. And so as a first-time Congoer, try to do a lot of different things. And don't be afraid to ask if you're not sure what to do. There's staff people at every convention. You can go to them and you can just say, hey, I am interested in this. Is this going on? And they can point you out at the right time or the right place. If it's not going on, they can let you know. Even if it's not going on, it's something you'd want to see next time, they will take that into consideration and bring it back to their meetings.
Every regeneration of the Doctor has something that everyone loves. And combined, everyone loves it. Which, he's always that all the time. Just one part of it is dominant at that point.
It's really the kind of the mystery of him. He's been around forever, he knows all this stuff, and also you have the 700 years before the Doctor Who series started of him living that is also a complete mystery. All you know is he stole the TARDIS and now he's on Earth 700 years old.
He's a great guy, and he's a nice guy, he's a crazy guy. He's like my perfect friend.
I think well, in the original series, I know it was intended to be educational, like one to the future, one to the past. And then over time, they've just sort of like taken it into something where he's not really a person, but you can relate to him, but you're sort of seeing something that you'd never otherwise get a chance to see. And it's just sort of like there's this message of every person is important. Like, that's what every regeneration has said in some way or another. Like, there is no person who is unimportant. And that's something that I feel like people like to see, and it just makes everyone happy.
Doctor Who has completely influenced my lifestyle, and I'm not even exaggerating that. I would honestly say that was like my sense of confidence in everything actually came from there, because it was one of the cliches that I know it's a cliche that some people say, but it is very true for me. When I was growing up, unpopular kid, everything like that, but here comes like the Doctor who does not follow the norm of everything of society, and he does, and if that was the first thing that it did for me, I'm like, I really identified well with that. Where I was like, he does what he is, and he's still confident with what he does. In terms of political beliefs and that, absolutely. It really has influence. I always say I've learned my whole system of right and wrong from Doctor Who. When I was a kid growing up, it was a really big thing. I still remember I really got into environmental issues, particularly after episodes like Green Death. I actually really did get environmentally conscious after that one.
Christopher Eccleston sums it up so well in, I think it's The End of the World, where he's talking to Rose, and Rose is looking at the Earth starting to burn up, and he goes on this little soliloquy about how humans are so worried about how they're gonna die, they're gonna be killed by eggs, they're gonna be killed by epidemic, they're gonna be killed by this, they're gonna be killed by that. No, humans go on. That's the thing that has always, always, always endeared Doctor Who to me, is that it is, if nothing else, hopeful.
Well, it's both the Doctor and MacGyver. So when I'm writing, I try not to have my heroes in my stories solve things with a weapon. One of my first books, The Crystal Throne, I had Peter's favorite, and I don't emphasize if it's the Doctor or MacGyver, basically said that his favorite hero didn't use weapons, so he had to think how to handle something. And that's more interesting. It actually expands the brain a little bit more, but it's not just, oh, I'll just whip out this sword and slay the monster. Well, no, what if the monster talks back? What if there's a reason why this monster is unhappy? With Wreck-It Ralph, that movie lately, is like, they set it up so that he's angry and he's smashing up the building because they destroyed his house. How could this be a bad guy then? So I like seeing a little bit more of the reasoning behind that. I mean, Brandon Morbius, yeah, you didn't have much choice. He was basically going to take the Doctor's head. But most other villains, even the Daleks can be confused. So yeah, see if you can reason with them first. What a wonderful creation to have somebody who's not... See, the wonderful thing about the Doctor, when I was first watching it, at that point you always had the over-sexualized characters, like, oh yes, Captain Kirk has a new romance every week. The fact is, here's somebody who just wants to travel in time and space, and you are welcome to travel with him. And what a wonderful idea.
It's that anything is possible. It's that he looks at us and sees that anything is possible. There's so much, especially these days, there's so much very cynical storytelling going on and very grim and very bleak, and there's a lot of that I love. You know, I watch The Walking Dead, for crying out loud. But to have this character who is created as an alien who comes from outside and looks at the human race and says, look at how brilliant you are, look at how amazing you are, look at the things that you overcome, it's a perspective that we really need.
You can project a lot of yourself into the Doctor. For me, it's the inquisitiveness, the wondering how it works, the, oh, you know what, let's go this way. Let's head that way and see where we end up. Yeah.
And then the ability to get out of scrapes when you find out where you've ended up. Yes. But yeah, and certainly his sense of justice, his sense of right and wrong, which I think has become a little diluted in recent years. But you know, there's always the caring, the compassion, the wanting to make sure that people are treated right.
I like, for the new ones, I kind of a sucker for the little touches, like the recent one where the unit director turned out to be Lethbridge Stewart's daughter. It was like, oh. It was a very touching moment for me. It got it outside of, this is just a TV show I'm watching, to, oh, the family's here.
What I would like to say to people who are thinking of watching Doctor Who have never really gotten into it and they feel overwhelmed by how much there is, my advice is to not worry about that. People say, where should I start? I'm like, you know what? Start anywhere. Just start anywhere and start watching and you'll figure it out. I started with a random episode that just happened to be on when I was 13. It was on PBS. I saw a preview for Doctor Who and I was like, what is this? I have to check this out. And it was Robots of Death. That's not the first episode of the series. That's not the first Fourth Doctor episode. That's not even the first Leela episode. It's just a random episode that was on. And I watched it, and there was all kinds of stuff that I had no idea about. But I was instantly hooked. And, you know, when people say, oh, you should watch this one, you should watch this one first, watch any of them and just relax and let yourself enjoy it and know that you will be able to figure it out. And if there's something that you just can't wrap your mind around, you have the entire internet at your disposal to figure out what it was. I didn't have the internet to look at when I was 13, and I was able to figure it out. So just sit back, watch any episode you want, and enjoy it.
And it was when the Fox telemovie happened for when the Paul McGann, and it was on a forum post that I saw, and I still think this was the best quote that ever helps when watching Doctor Who, and especially if you're a fan, no matter what era you are, it really helps. Is this quote that says, remember, Doctor Who is, was, and always will be a show that has faced on change. It has evolved and has gotten better and has existed and survived through change.
Like any good idea that has some value to make people better or their experiences better, I think that idea will last. Don't forget your past, enjoy all there is to the show. I think just because, and I would say to anybody who is in, the UK or America or anybody who's a fan of the program, revel in the fact that you have something that is enjoyable and fun, that entertained you, that you had an opportunity to learn from, that made you better in some way. And I think ultimately, I think that's what the program's about.